A Radio Canada investigation may have you thinking twice the next time you're at the grocery store. Hidden cameras reveal that fresh packaged meat may be older than the labels suggest.
A federal inspector walked into a meat department on this list and found temperature readings so far above the safe zone that he ordered everything in the case destroyed on the spot. Not flagged for review, not marked for discount. Destroyed. Another store on this list has been sourcing beef from a supplier that failed its most recent third-party safety audit. The beef kept coming anyway. And somewhere on the same grocery strip, a store most Americans walk past without a second look is running the tightest, most transparent meat sourcing operation in the country. 5 grocery stores where the meat department is actively dangerous. 5 where the people behind the counter actually know where the animal came from. Keep a tight grip on your wallet. Let's go. Worst number 5. Walmart. Walmart sells more meat than any other retailer in America, more volume than any competitor, more supply chain complexity than any food operation in human history. And the meat department reflects exactly what happens when scale becomes the primary value and everything else becomes secondary. Walmart sources beef, pork, and poultry from a network of industrial suppliers so large and so geographically dispersed that meaningful supplier-level oversight is structurally impossible at the volume the company moves. Independent consumer safety organizations have repeatedly flagged the audit infrastructure as insufficient. The FDA and USDA recall databases through 2024 and 2025 consistently feature Walmart-stocked meat products across multiple protein categories. Not occasionally, consistently. Health inspection. Records from Walmart meat departments across multiple states show recurring violations for improper cold holding temperatures in the fresh meat case. The safe cold holding temperature for raw meat is 41 degrees or below. Inspection reports from Walmart locations in Texas, Florida, and Ohio document meat case temperatures exceeding that threshold by margins significant enough to trigger product disposal orders. A former Walmart meat department manager in Georgia, who left the company in 2024, described the operational conditions in a labor complaint. "We were running a full-service meat case with 2 people on a Saturday. The case was alarming on temperature, and we had no time to pull product and restock properly. I flagged it to the store manager. He said to keep the line moving. Keep the line moving. That is the Walmart meat department safety philosophy summarized in 4 words. Walmart is publicly traded. It answers to shareholders who want margin expansion every quarter. The meat department staffing model reflects that priority directly. Fewer employees. Lower payroll, higher margin. The product sitting in the case at an unsafe temperature is the externalized cost of that calculation. The customer absorbs it. But Walmart's failures are at least documented and traceable. What number 4 is doing involves something more deliberate, and the paper trail behind it is more alarming than a temperature log. Worst number 4. Kroger. Kroger is the largest traditional supermarket operator in America. Nearly 2,800 stores, $150 billion in annual revenue, and a meat sourcing and department management record that should make every customer who has ever bought ground beef at a Kroger stop and read this entry carefully. In 2024, investigative reporting revealed that Kroger had continued purchasing beef from a supplier that had received a failing grade in its most recent third-party safety audit. Not a borderline grade, a failing grade. The supplier's audit failure was documented and known to Kroger's procurement team. The beef kept coming. The price was right. That sequence, failing audit, continued purchase, is not a clerical oversight. It is a procurement decision made by a publicly traded company whose primary accountability is to quarterly earnings, not to the customer buying ground beef for her family's dinner. Kroger's meat department health inspection records compound the sourcing problem. Records from Kroger locations in multiple states show violations for inadequate sanitization of meat cutting equipment, improper separation between raw and ready-to-eat products in the preparation area, and temperature control failures in the fresh case. A Kroger meat department employee in Michigan, who participated in the 2024 labor action, described the sanitation conditions to a local television crew. The slicer was supposed to be broken down and sanitized every 4 hours. We had the volume to do it once per shift if we were lucky. I raised it. The response was that we needed to maintain throughput. Maintain throughput. The slicer that should be sanitized every 4 hours was contaminating every product that touched it between cleanings. If watching a $150 billion publicly traded company knowingly purchase beef from a supplier that failed its safety audit makes your blood boil, hit that subscribe button right now. We run these investigations every single week. The pattern does not change. Only the brand names do. Done? Good. Worst number 3, Albertsons. Albertsons operates under a collection of regional banners: Safeway, Vons, Jewel Osco, Tom Thumb. The banners are different. The meat department problems are consistent across all of them. Albertsons is publicly traded and was in the middle of a failed merger attempt with Kroger that consumed years of management attention and hundreds of millions in legal spending. The merger consumed capital that could have gone into meat department equipment, staffing, and supplier oversight. What it produced instead was a meat case that looks like a grocery store from the outside and functions like an understaffed operation running on deferred maintenance from the inside. Health inspection records from Albertsons' owned stores across California, Washington, and Arizona show recurring violations in the meat and seafood departments specifically. Temperature control failures in fresh meat cases. Improper dating of packaged meat products. Cross-contamination risks between raw proteins in shared preparation areas. An inspection report from a Safeway location in Phoenix in 2024 cited raw ground beef observed stored directly adjacent to ready-to-eat deli products in walk-in cooler. No physical separation. Corrective action required immediately. No physical separation. Raw ground beef next to ready-to-eat products. In a walk-in cooler at a chain charging premium prices for its meat counter. The merger-related management distraction produced a specific and documentable outcome in the meat departments of stores across the Albertsons portfolio. Deferred equipment maintenance. Aging refrigeration units running above specification. Staffing levels that cannot execute the rotation, dating, and separation protocols that a safe meat department requires. A longtime Albertsons meat department employee in Sacramento, who left after the merger announcement, described the conditions in an exit interview. The case coolers had been flagged for service for 8 months. Nobody fixed them. The temperature logs showed they were running 2 to 3 degrees over. Management said to keep logging them and they would get to it. They would get to it. While the temperature logs showed unsafe readings. While customers were buying meat from a case running above the safe threshold. What number 2 allowed into its meat case is more specific and more alarming than a temperature log. It involves a pathogen, and the chain knew it. Worst number 2, Family Dollar. Family Dollar sells meat. That sentence alone should trigger a level of scrutiny that most customers have never applied to a Family Dollar visit. The same chain that pleaded guilty to federal criminal charges related to rodent infestation at a distribution center in West Memphis, Arkansas in 2022. The same chain whose distribution facility FDA investigators described as among the most severe rodent infestation findings in their office's documented history, also sells refrigerated and packaged meat products in its retail locations. The meat that was distributed through a facility where federal inspectors found live rodents, dead rodents, rodent feces, and urine staining throughout the storage areas. Before the recall, before the criminal charges, the meat had been shipped. Family Dollar was forced to recall products from over 400 stores across 6 states. The recall included food products that had passed through the contaminated West Memphis facility. The FDA field report was explicit. Among the most severe rodent infestation findings documented by this office in a food distribution facility, Family Dollar pleaded guilty, paid a fine, and continued selling meat in retail locations. Subsequent inspections at other Family Dollar distribution facilities found conditions consistent with the original West Memphis findings. The criminal conviction did not restructure the operational model that produced the contamination. It produced a press release. A customer in Arkansas who had regularly purchased meat products from a Family Dollar location in the recall zone submitted a formal complaint to the FDA. "I bought packaged beef from there every week. When I found out what was in that warehouse, I felt physically ill thinking about what I had brought home to my family." What she had brought home to her family. Family Dollar's customer base is disproportionately low income, the people least able to shop elsewhere. the people with the fewest resources to absorb the consequences of discovering that the ground beef they bought for Sunday dinner was distributed through a criminally contaminated facility. That is not an accident of market positioning. That is a moral failure embedded in a business model. What is at worst, number one, involves a more sustained pattern of meat department failure, protected by premium branding that gives customers no reason to look closer. Worst number one, Safeway. Safeway represents the most specific betrayal on this list, because Safeway charges premium prices for its meat counter. The signage, the butcher branding, the quality language on the packaging, all of it implies a meat department operating at a standard above the grocery average. The inspection records suggest otherwise. Health inspection records across Safeway locations in California, Washington, Oregon, and Arizona show the meat and seafood departments generating the highest concentration of critical violations in the store. Not minor violations, critical violations. The category that health departments use for conditions that directly threaten consumer health. Temperature control failures in fresh meat cases. Improper sanitization of meat cutting equipment. Inadequate date labeling on packaged meat products. Cross-contamination between raw proteins and ready-to-eat items. An inspection report from a Safeway location in the Bay Area in 2024 cited whole chicken products observed in fresh case at 48 degrees. Required maximum is 41 degrees. Product temperature has been above threshold for undetermined duration. All affected product discarded. All affected product discarded. Product at 48 degrees for an undetermined duration. At a meat counter marketing itself as a premium butcher experience. Safeway is owned by Albertson's companies, the same parent company generating violations at its other regional banners. Albertson's companies reported $80 billion in annual revenue in 2024. The meat case that was running 7 degrees above the safe threshold was not a resource problem, it was a priority problem. Safeway also operates a loyalty pricing system that charges customers without a digital app significantly more for the same meat products. A senior customer in Sacramento discovered the pricing gap after a family member compared receipts. I have been buying my steak here for 20 years. I found out I have been paying 40% more than the person behind me because I do not have a smartphone. 20 years of premium prices for a meat case that the inspectors keep citing. 40% more. For a meat case generating critical violations. That is the Safeway Meat Department customer experience summarized in one sentence. Hit that like button right now if you think customers buying premium-priced meat deserve a meat department that actually earns the premium. Share this video because every person buying steak at a Safeway counter thinking they are getting a butcher-quality product deserves to know what the inspection record actually shows. Done? Good. Now, here are 5 grocery stores where the people running the meat department actually take the job seriously. Best number 5. Publix is significantly employee-owned. That ownership structure changes everything about how a meat department functions. When the person behind the counter holds a direct financial stake in the company's performance, the decision about whether to check the meat case temperature one more time before clocking out is a different decision than the one made by a minimum wage employee at a chain where nobody above them cares what the temperature log says. Publix meat departments consistently generate some of the lowest critical violation rates of any major grocery chain in the country. The violations that do appear are predominantly minor and non-recurring. That is the inspection pattern of a department that is genuinely well managed, not one that cleans up for the annual inspection and reverts afterward. Publix butchers are trained in-house through a program that produces measurably consistent results across the chain's southeastern operating territory. A Publix meat department employee in Florida, who has been with the company for over 12 years, described the training model in a local business profile. They taught me everything: the cutting, the dating, the temperature protocol, the sanitation schedule, and then they gave me a reason to care about doing it right. The ownership stake is that reason. No amount of corporate training video investment produces that outcome. It comes from giving the person behind the counter a reason that goes beyond the hourly rate. Publix pricing is honest. No loyalty program creating a two-tier system where customers without a smartphone pay more for the same pork chop. The price on the case is the price everyone pays. That sounds like a minimum standard. After everything on the worst list, it is worth naming as a genuine achievement. But Publix operates only in the Southeast. The store at best number 4 has built something comparable at a scale that reaches a much larger part of the country. Best number 4, Costco. Costco's meat department is the most visited meat counter in America. The volume is a function of the membership model. The quality is a function of a sourcing and supplier oversight operation that puts every chain on the worst list to shame. Costco sources beef through direct relationships with a limited number of verified suppliers. The chain conducts its own internal quality audits of those suppliers independent of third-party certification. When a supplier fails an audit, Costco ends the relationship. Not issues a corrective action notice. Not continues purchasing while the supplier addresses findings. Ends the relationship. That is a different accountability structure than anything Kroger or Albertsons operates under. Costco's Kirkland Signature Beef Program sources from ranches that meet specific breed, feed, and handling standards that the company publishes and enforces. The publication of those standards is itself significant. Walmart does not publish its beef supplier standards. Kroger does not publish its beef supplier standards. Costco does. Because they can. Because the standards are real enough to withstand scrutiny. Health inspection records for Costco meat departments consistently rank among the best in the warehouse retail category. The high-volume turnover of the Costco meat case is a safety advantage rather than a liability. Product moves fast. Fast-moving product spends less time in the case. Less time in the case means less exposure to the temperature variations and handling risks that produce violations at lower volume competitors. A regular Costco member in Washington State, who has been buying meat there for over 15 years, wrote in a review, "I have never once had a problem with Costco meat, not once, in 15 years. That is not luck. That is a system that works." Not luck, a system that works. The store, at best number 3, has built a different kind of system, smaller, more regional, and with a sourcing transparency commitment that goes further than anything Costco has published. Best number 3, Wegmans. Wegmans has appeared on best employer lists for so many consecutive years that the recognition has become a reliable annual feature of business publications. That employer recognition translates directly into meat department performance. Meat department employees who stay for years rather than weeks develop the kind of institutional knowledge about safe handling, proper rotation, and temperature management that cannot be installed through orientation training. It accumulates through practice. Wegmans meat department staff. Retention rates significantly outperform the grocery industry average. The result appears in health inspection records that show some of the lowest critical violation rates of any grocery chain operating at comparable scale in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Wegman sources beef and pork through regional supplier relationships with documented farm-level standards. The company publishes sourcing information on its website. Named farms, named ranches, the actual places where the animals were raised, accessible to any customer who wants to verify the claim. That level of sourcing transparency is rare enough in the grocery industry that its presence at Wegmans is worth naming explicitly. A Wegmans regular in Virginia, who researched the sourcing of the ground beef she had been buying, wrote in an online forum, "I looked up the farm on the Wegmans website. It exists. It is where they say it is. I called them. They answered. I was not expecting any of that." She was not expecting any of that. She should be able to expect it at every grocery store. She cannot. What the store, at best number 2, has built takes regional sourcing transparency further than Wegmans, with a supply chain so short and so directly managed that the gap between the animal and the package in the case is measured in days rather than weeks. Best number 2, HEB is privately held. No quarterly earnings call. No shareholder demanding to know why the beef supplier audit budget was not reduced this quarter. No publicly traded board weighing the cost of maintaining rigorous sourcing standards against the benefit of switching to a cheaper commodity supplier. Just a Texas family-owned company that has decided what kind of meat department it wants to run and has the structural freedom to run it that way. HEB sources beef from a concentrated network of Texas and regional suppliers with whom the company maintains direct, long-term relationships. The supply chain is short. Shorter supply chains mean fewer handling steps. Fewer handling steps mean fewer contamination opportunities. Fewer contamination opportunities mean safer meat. That logic is simple. Most publicly traded grocery chains cannot act on it because the commodity purchasing model that produces quarterly margin expansion requires a long supply chain with many price-competitive suppliers bidding against each other. HEB does not have a quarterly earnings call. It does not need the commodity purchasing model. It buys from suppliers it knows. HEB's Central Market banner, which operates in major Texas markets, takes the sourcing model further. Named ranch beef. Published breed and feeding standards. Direct traceability from specific ranches to specific cuts in the case. Health inspection records for HEB meat departments across Texas consistently rank among the best of any grocery retailer in the country at any price point. A customer in Houston who specifically researched the sourcing of HEB's beef before switching from a national chain wrote, "The ranch that supplies their beef is documented on their website. I drove past it on a trip last year. It is real. That should be the standard everywhere." It is not. It should be the standard everywhere. It is not. But the store, at best number one, has made sourcing transparency not just a standard, but the foundational commitment that defines everything about how they operate. Best number one, Sprouts. Farmers Market. Sprouts publishes the sourcing information for its meat products, not in a sustainability report, not in a corporate responsibility document that requires a law degree to navigate. On the product page, available to any customer standing in the aisle holding a package of ground beef who wants to know where the animal came from before she puts it in her cart. The beef at Sprouts is sourced from a limited network of verified suppliers with documented standards for animal welfare, feeding practices, and handling protocols. Those suppliers are named. Those standards are published. The verification is third-party audited, not taken on faith. Audited. Sprouts meat products carry certification designations that require ongoing independent verification. USDA Organic. Certified Humane. Non-GMO Project Verified. Each of these certifications requires a third-party auditor to visit the supplier, review the practices, and confirm that the standards are being met. Each audit costs money. Sprouts pays for those audits because the certifications reflect genuine operational commitments rather than marketing language. Contrast that with Walmart, which sources from hundreds of commodity suppliers without publishing audit results. Contrast it with Kroger, which continued purchasing from a supplier that failed its most recent audit. Contrast it with Family Dollar, which distributed meat products through a facility that federal inspectors described as criminally contaminated. Sprouts charges more for its meat than those chains. The price difference is the audit cost, the traceability infrastructure cost, the higher sourcing standards cost. You are not paying a premium for a label. You are paying for an independent auditor who visited the ranch, reviewed the records, and confirmed that what the label says is what is actually happening. Health inspection records for Sprouts meat departments consistently show some of the lowest critical violation rates of any grocery retailer in the country. The smaller department scale helps. Sprouts does not try to run a full-service, high-volume meat counter competing with Costco on volume. It runs a focused, well-staffed, tightly managed meat department where the staff understands the product they are handling because the training investment and the retention rates give them time to develop that understanding. A Sprouts meat department employee in Phoenix, who has been with the company for 4 years, described the sourcing orientation she received when she started. They told us the names of the farms. They showed us pictures. They explained why we source from there specifically. I have never worked anywhere else where anyone told me that. I think about it every time I cut a piece of beef. She thinks about it every time she cuts a piece of beef. That is the difference between a Sprouts meat department and everything on the worst list. At Walmart, nobody told the meat department manager where the beef came from. At Kroger, The procurement team knew the supplier had failed its audit and bought the beef anyway. At Family Dollar, the distribution facility was documented by federal investigators as one of the worst contamination findings in the office's history. At Safeway, the case was running 7 degrees above the safe threshold for an undetermined duration. At Albertson's, raw ground beef was stored directly adjacent to ready-to-eat products with no physical separation. At Sprouts, the employee cutting the beef knows the name of the farm it came from. That is not a small difference. That is the entire difference. It is the difference between a meat department that exists to move product through a supply chain at the lowest possible cost and a meat department that exists to provide a customer with a safe, traceable, honestly labeled piece of protein that the people selling it can actually account for. Every store on this list made a choice about which kind of meat department to run. The worst list chose the former. Sprouts chose the latter. And the inspection records, the audit results, the sourcing documentation, and the employee who thinks about the farm name every time she picks up a knife confirm that the choice makes a difference you can measure. Thanks for watching. If this changed where you are buying meat this weekend, drop a comment below and tell us which store on the worst list you are walking away from. And tell us which store on the best list is closest to you. We want to know. Want to see which fast food chains are sourcing their beef from the same commodity suppliers as the worst grocery stores on this list? Click the video on the left and I will meet you there.